Okay, so let's see the practical application we are going to develop now.
So now let's say hi and let's click send. Now you can see it says hi and you got this up button, right? So you got it because you configured in the Manifest XML as that this activity has a parent activity called main activity. So when you click this, it will go back to that parent activity, which is the main.
Okay, so let's continue to develop this application now.
Hi everyone, welcome to the lesson Start Another Activity Part 2 of Android. Let's dig into this and see what's inside this. Tools we'll be using Android Studio version 4.01 for practicals and Android Developer Docs and APIs for referencing. Prerequisite, you have to have some Java knowledge, and also you have to look at our previous lesson about Start Another Activity Part 1 because this is part 2 of that lesson. So in this session you will learn about continuing to learn from what where we stopped in the previous lesson about passing data between activities and adding upward navigation and some very important API level discussions. Lesson plan as usual going to be practical demonstrations. Let's dig into the lesson now. So before we dig into the lesson, this is where we stopped in the previous lesson where we can enter a message, and when we click the send button, now we know how to call another screen, or in other words how to load a second activity. So we did up to that point in the previous lesson. So what we are going to do now is whatever the message entered by the user here, when we click send, we want to send it to this activity and display it on this activity, and let's see how to do it now. So in order to do that, so this is where we stopped in the previous lesson where we create an intent and we found the ID from the screen and we got the text and then we started. So look at the previous lesson for that, right? Now and then we have the display activity, and basically it's talking what's happening here. So it has an intent, it talks about parameters. We'll come into that, right? When we talk about API discussions, let's see how this works first, right? Start activity. So we have the second activity, and now we have to create the interface for the second activity. So we have to add a text view. So we have to go for the layout and active display message XML, which is the second activity. So we have to go for resources, layout, activity display message, the second activity, right? So in that it says enable auto connection to parent, right? So let's put this let's enable this and do the work, and then I will explain what this does, right? So which is this one over here, enable auto connection to parent. So I have enabled it. Let's talk about it in little while. In the palette, click the text and get a text view. So from the palette, and just before that, if you remember our previous lessons about creating the first simple app, when you do this you have to go to the blueprint, because that's where you can see the constraints. Make sure you are in the blueprint when you design, right? From palette, click text and click text view, right? So text view, which is a label actually, right? And drop it near the top left, top center, right? So it snaps. So top center, so drag it somewhere in the top center, so you can see the center guidelines. So I will be dropping it somewhere here, right? Awesome. And let's increase it a bit. Let's take this a bit down. Awesome, right? Great. It's done. So if you read here what it says uh, near the top, so it snaps to the vertical lines that appears, right? Okay. Auto connects adds left and right constraints. That's what happened. So this auto connect thing which you clicked here, if I click here, this thing, the auto connect thing, what it does is it auto connects, because as it says, it auto connects to the parent. So what does it mean? It's about constraints we discussed in the previous lessons, right? So look at our previous few lessons, the last 2 or 3, where we discussed about constraints. So when you auto connect to parent is enabled, when you drag a component, you see the constraints are automatically added. So so that is the idea, that is the purpose of enabling the auto connect to parent, so that when you drag a component, it adds some default constraints connecting to the parent, right? So That's what I want, because I just want only this and I don't have anything else. So I would like this to get auto connected to the parent, right, at this very moment, right? Awesome. Create one more constraint from the top of the view to the top of the layout so that it appears as shown in this source over here. So just click this, drag this anchor to this, right? And okay, you can, and then it says 16, so you have to click here and give a gap of 16, right, from the property palette constraint widget, right? So awesome. So we gave that constraints, right? Optionally you can make some adjustments, right, to the text appearance, right? So let's do that as well. So it talks about text appearance in the attributes and change the text size and the text color. So if I click on this and see the text appearance, expand it. So from this we can give the text size, right? Let's give a bit a larger size. Okay, let's say 24, right? Just for experimental, and you can give a text color, right? So let's click on this. So on the text color, just click this button, right? Pick a resource. Then from this you can give some color, right? So let's give, let's say blue color, right? Click OK. So the text will appear, and if you want it italic, just click italic, right? So a couple of styles, right? Awesome. Let's see what's next. Okay, so the next step is to display the message, right? So in order to display the message, you have to go to that second activity, right, which is this Java file. That is where you will be doing the coding, right? So in the second activity, Java file, on in the onCreate method. So what is onCreate? It's a life cycle method, and we will talk more about that when we do the API discussions, right? Especially about the life cycle of a activity, right? We'll talk about that next. So on the onCreate method, we have to get the intent. So get the intent that started this activity. So the second activity is loaded through an intent, as you are aware by now. So from the second activity, onCreate meaning when the activity is getting created, we can call get intent and get the intent, and we can access the intent, get the intent that started this activity, right? And from that we can extract the string. So we can get the intent which loaded this second activity, and from that we can call the method get string extra. So because we have put a string, right? So we have put, if you look here, from the first activity, which is the main activity, into the intent we put extra and we put the string. So that is what we are retrieving now from the second activity. So from the second activity, we'll first get the intent which originated this activity, and from that intent object you can call the method get string extra, right? And the, and then you have to pass the key to the intent, because when you put the string, look here, when you put it, that string message which was typed in the text box, you put it into a key called extra message, which is a public static string variable in the main activity. So because it's static, you can call it from the second activity by referring as main activity dot, because it's static, you can say main activity dot extra message. You can refer to that key. That is what you are referring it from here. So here you will say main activity dot extra message. You are referring to that key, and from that intent you will retrieve that incoming message. So the incoming message then you have to display in that text box which we created just now, right? So over here we just put a text label. So onto that label we have to first get access to that text view, and then to that we have to set the message, meaning to this, right? So that's what we'll be doing now. So I will be copying these two lines first, right? Then I will be going into the second activity, and inside onCreate method, which is the lifecycle method, I'm going to put it over here, right? Once again, alter enter from the keyboard, right? Alter enter. Awesome. Then it imports the relevant packages, right? So now I got the message, right? Now I want to display the message. So to display the message, right, I have to first get access to the that text view and set the text, right? Once again, alter enter, right? So alter enter, right? Awesome. So find view by ID is to access a view, right? A view is what you display. So this is a view, or in the other one, So this is a view, this is a view, right? A text box is a view, a button is a view. Then over here it's a label is a view. So to access any view, you will be using this method in Android called find view by ID, r.id.textView. So what is this text view? It's the ID, right? So if you look here in the previous activity, if you go to the code, you can see here it's edit text, here it's button, right? Then if you look into this, the second screen, if you go to the code, you can see the ID is text view. So you are referring to this text view, right? So which means, so you are referring to that text view, meaning in this screen, the second activity screen, if you look at the code, or if you even look here, from here you can see the ID. And if I click on this, then if I look at the ID, it says it's text view. Look at the mouse in the property palette, right? Text view. So you are referring to that text view, and you got that. And why is it put into a text view? That's because, see, if you look at it, it's a text view, right? So if you look at even the component tree, you can see it's a text view from here, or if not, if you go to the code, you can see it's a text view, right? Awesome. So now that is why it's stored in a text view object. And now on that text view, it's a label actually. On that label, you can set text and pass this message which you received from the intent, and the intent received this from the previous screen, meaning from the first screen. So let's run this and see whether it works, right? Maybe it's a bit too much for you because it's at the beginning, but don't worry, you will learn. These things will get further clear to you when we do more and more practice. If I say hey John and click the send message, now you can see it's appearing here, hi John, right? So if I say something else, hi John, like, okay, if I say let's chat or something like that and send, it says let's chat, right? Awesome. So this is how you pass data from one activity to another activity. In other words, from one screen to another screen. So you learn some important skills right over here, and let's do a API discussion as well after this, right? But let's see what's next, right? Final thing is about the adding the upward navigation, like a navigation button, right? Awesome. So let's look into this. So it says to add this upward, see, like a back button. Yeah, in the navigation button, we don't have it at the moment because when you go to the next screen over here, I don't get like a button. Of course I got it here at the bottom, but if you want it over here in a navigation area, right, something like this, then what do? You have to go to the manifest.xml, right, to add the up button. You call it as up button, right? So to do this, you can put it into the app bar. So what is this app bar? Let's look at that. So if I open this, it is what you see at the top, the adding the app bar, which is this one, right? This purple color one you see over here, app bar. It's already there by default, but you can customize it, you can do a few things by, let's look into that later, but now it's about adding it to that. So to add this, add the up button in the app bar. So how to add this up button in the app bar? In other words, this one, like the back button, right, up your the back button, right? How do you do it? To add this up button, you need to declare in the manifest.xml. So you have to go to the manifest.xml, right, which is the main configuration file. So in the manifest.xml, what is it asking us to do, right? Locate the activity for the display message activity, which is this one, right? Activity display message, right? And then replace it with the following. So this display message activity, which is this, it's one line here, but now we are expanding it into multiple lines, starting at the tag and stopping the tag. Here it starts the tag here and stops the tag here, but so I'm going to replace this one line into, it's like starting activity and then a metadata, and then as metadata you'll be adding the parent activity called main activity, which is the first one, which will automatically will set a back button or up button to the parent activity called main activity, which is my first activity. So if what I'm doing is just this single line will be now multiple lines, so I'm deleting it and putting it. So what happens now is, to the second activity we add extra metadata telling its parent activity is main activity, which is the first activity. So now in this activity you will get a back button referring to the main activity, right? So that's how that's how you connect it, right? Let's run and see this so that you will see that is in action, right? Okay, so now let's say hi and let's click send. Now you can see it says hi and you got this up button, right? So you got it because you configured in the Manifest XML as that this activity has a parent activity called main activity. So when you click this, it will go back to that parent activity, which is the main activity. So you got the main activity and the second activity, display message activity. So for the display message activity, what you are telling is, for that you say there's a parent activity called main activity, which is the first one, right? Awesome. So this is how you add a up button or navigation button, right? Great, right? Okay, now let's look into few more things. So we did the practical demonstration. So now as a conclusion, now you know how to pass data between activities and how to retrieve it and display, right? So you did a few things. You learn about how to pass the data, how to retrieve and how to display, and finally you learn about how to add the upward navigation, right? So now let's dig into some API discussions and see to look into some technical aspects in the API just before we finish this part. So API stands for Application Programming Interface, and that has a lot of information for you to see. For example, in the when you create an intent, there were two parameters. So if you need to know what are these two parameters, and when I say this, it works, right? So I can't pass a number here because if I say 10 here, it gives error because 10 is not a valid parameter for the as the first parameter for the constructor of the intent. But when I put this, it works. So we need to see why it works and why what is the second parameter, for example, some things like that, right? And where does this method come from? Find view by id, for example. And then, for example, on the edit text, when you say get text, why did you have to call a method called toString? So for all that you can find information in the API. Then once again, in the intent, why is this method put extra? For example, where is this start activity method coming from, right? Things like that, right? Where is it coming from? A few important things to learn about this, right? So, and not only that, when you look at the display message activity, get intent, where does it comes from, right? And then this thing like get string extra, because when you put it as put extra, but now when you are calling it, you are calling it as get string. So all this information can be found from the API, right? Let's dig into the API now. So we completed the practical demonstrations for this session, and the conclusion is now you learn about passing data between activities, how to pass, how to retrieve, how to display, and add the upward navigation. Reference was Android Developer Docs and API. And what's next? It's very important to have a look at the next lesson to complete this app, because in the next lesson we'll be discussing about detailed API level discussion about giving answers for the questions we raised just a little while ago in this lesson, right? What is this, why there are these parameters, and this kind of yeah, technical stuff. So look at the next lesson for that, and have a look at our other videos for practicals on Android. We are very excited to see you in the next lesson to complete this app. See you in the next lesson.